Okay, we are live.
Hi, everybody.
Hi. We are so happy to
Hello.
be here, and we have a special guest, everyone. So this is Shanna.
And I'm Jill.
And today we have, oh gosh, guys, so this has been long awaited. We have Clayton Thomas here. Clayton Thomas is the co-founder of Root. So we are super excited to have him here. We're going to pick his brain today. He's also the owner, but what makes Clayton really, really special is Clayton's wife, Dr. Ram, is the co-founder, the CEO, and most importantly, the formulator behind all of Root. Probably the smartest woman I've ever met. Not probably, but definitely is. Absolutely amazing. And we just found out, if you guys look over Clayton's shoulder, she's also a painter. I don't think there's anything she doesn't do.
Artist in its purest sense. She writes, she paints, she's got amazing kids, she's created molecules, formulas. Yeah, it's good time. So let's have some fun. I hear there's questions.
Yes.
First of all, welcome. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you for all of your support. Shanna and I, as everybody knows in the group, Shanna and I have come across new research. Clayton and Dr. Christina have played a huge role in that. We've been forever grateful and blessed. So we've been trying to bring things to the group. We're trying to add things as quickly as we can. But we thought, what better way than to have Clayton right here with us, and let's get some questions going.
Yes. Okay. So I think where I want to start, because I've had this a lot, the number one question I have is, what makes Cleanslate different than other zeolites? Everybody here knows for a long time that we have promoted PBX and Pure Body. At the time, that's the best that we knew of. But, you know, just like Jill says all the time, you might drive a 1980 something car, but then whenever you grow up, you drive a nicer car. So it's kind of that situation. So maybe we could have Clayton kind of explain some of the intimates about it, and just what makes Cleanslate better than zeolites, or other zeolites, I should say.
And to really use your analogy, I think the key component to that is, if when you look at a vehicle, you have the Model T, which is a car, which is really clinoptilolite, right? If we're talking zeolites, you can say bentonite, you can say clinoptilolite, asbestos, quartz. That's the raw, right? So the Model T was the raw. And most people today wouldn't drive a Model T. Now, granted, it's a legend. But as far as its functionality, not as ideal. It's not going to get you from point A to point B to point C to point D in the manner and the speed that you might want to get there. Not as safe either. And like you mentioned, you know, for a lot of people, we understand that in pretty much every aspect of life over the last, we'll give it 20 to 30 years, or we'll say, 20 to 30 years, there's been a couple advancements in technology. There's been a couple advancements in science. There's been advancements in social media. There's been advancements in manufacturing processes in every aspect of life, right? And so you can look at that process of, like you said, if you got a car that was born in the 2000s, right? And they're great cars. Even we'll say 2010. There's great technology in those vehicles. They're really functional. And you have a choice to drive a car that was made in 2010 or 2012, or you have the opportunity to drive the newest Tesla Model S Plaid, which is the most advanced vehicle on the road right now. Has 0 to 60 in 1.99 seconds. That's
crazy.
More advanced. Which one do you choose? Well, of course, you're going to choose the new one because, well, it's better performing, more technology, different process than what has been done before. And that is honestly the difference between Cleanslate and the rest of, you can say the zeolite industry, as you're referring to, because it comes down to one raws is the clinoptilolite that we use, that we've acquired, that we sole source from a mine, is the purest available in the market. 97% pure clinoptilolite, 3% bentonite, and it's 66% silica. So it is the best source of clinoptilolite you're going to find on the planet. Trust me, we've looked. And it was funny, I was talking to a colleague that sells powders, who's actually the leader, he has the most recognized website in the zeolite space. And we were talking about a month and a half ago. He's like, man, I thought I had the purest clino out there. I'm like, well, how pure is it? He's like, 94%. I'm like, it's good. We're at a little more. We're at 97. And he's like, I didn't know. I'm like, of course, because it wasn't really available. It's been quiet. Mm-hmm. So you have to start with raw, but then it comes to process. And like you hit on, my wife is probably the most dynamic woman in healthcare because of where she comes from. And it's only with experience that you're able to create. And she has a master's in science, a PhD, a PsyD, an EDD, a postdoc at Harvard in nanotechnology and bioscience engineering, and additional postdoctoral work at Cornell in pharmaceutical management and nutritional counseling, because she wanted to hit on both sides as far as her most recent postdoctoral work. But she's been employed at Alexion, Biogen IDEC, Pfizer, Johnson & Johnson, UCB, Bristol Myers Squibb, and J&J. So she has experience at the forefront of biotech. The two of the largest biotech companies in the world, she was one of the first 30 people hired at. So a lot of the major biotech blockbuster drugs that are in the market today or have come over the last few years, she was one of the people working on them. So she understands the technological advancements and how to function from a pharma and biotech philosophy. But for her own health, having Lyme disease when she was 19 years old and losing her memory, having her first pregnancy with twins and having the first child one of the twins become a partial molar pregnancy, which is cancer, and electing not to have a medical abortion and to carry the other one to term with the risk of what the doctor said was a 99 to 100% chance that the kid was either going to die or have major medical issues, and elect as a mother the opportunity to have cancer for the rest of her life because she refused to let go of the firstborn, and then have the opportunity to have a spinal tumor, a pituitary tumor, skin cancer of all different kinds, but to address, knowing her background, to address it naturally. And then to have our third son have cancer when he was 2 with a tumor on his chest wall, where the establishment recommended that they cut and do radiation and chemo. And she refused to do that because she knew what the complications would be over the long term, went natural, took care of the issue. And now he's 16 years old. He's 6'4" and a pretty astounding individual and a great athlete. And she's been through the process. She's been through parts of life that no one else really wants to endure. The things that people fear, she's already addressed.
So I have to stop right here.
Yeah.
I'm going to say, before you go on. Oh, and I'm echoing. I'm sorry. I'm going to add to Dr. Christina's list of amazing things. I think the number one thing that I would put her at is, as a mother and understanding what she went through and choosing life, hero. So I'm just going to say that. But continue.
Yeah. So she's taken all of her life experience and being a mom, going through that process, being a survivor. She's had Lyme. She lost her memory at the age of 19. She grew up with a photographic memory. She won National History Day in middle school, she's met multiple presidents, but she got to meet her first president because she won National History Day, because it was really easy in school because she had a photographic memory. She could flip through the book. She remembered everything. But she lost her memory when she got Lyme disease. So God giveth God taketh away. But if you follow, sometimes he gives you more than you've ever asked for. And she came out of it in recovery and had an eidetic memory with the ability to speed read, which is really not fair because now she has the ability to remember everything she's ever heard, seen, or read, compile it, and it's all there on demand. And you take those experiences, and it's that level of acumen, along with my little bit of a background over the last 16 years and working in distribution, sales, consulting, manufacturing in the zeolite space, and bringing the two of us together where I had my experience and her experience, and she's taken what she knew to create a process that's never been done that uses cryogenic fracking, thermal shock, phosphates, polarization, and creating a superstructure of nature's purest form of clinoptilolite, but breaking it apart into smaller structures and creating a superstructure with it. Because what we're doing is we're taking clinoptilolite and blowing it up to create smaller cages and fragments, but then structuring that, you can say, superstructure with trace minerals, with ascorbic acid, to create a completely different superstructure that is enhanced beyond anything the zeolite industry's ever seen. And then we polarize it because clinoptilolite is a crystal and it has a natural negative charge. And if you play with it energetically from a quantum perspective, because you have to understand quantum physics to play in that realm. And like our kids were understanding string theory 10 years ago because of what mom does. And then you create, you can say, a beast that's never been done before, that performs like nothing that's ever been in the market and gets outcomes like people have never imagined. And that's what's really, really important, is everything that we base ourselves on is one word. It's not about, oh, is your formula better? You know, how is it better? How is it different? It really doesn't matter, because that's all talk. We can talk size and all this other stuff. It's only one thing that matters: outcomes. Because as a CEO, as an owner, as a parent, as a business person, as an athlete, you're only judged on one thing, and it's really the only thing that people care about: outcomes. If I spend my money, if I sacrifice my time, if I sacrifice my ability to look at other options, am I going to have the outcomes? And I'll tell you this, based on, and I've only done this for 16 years, every major zeolite product in the market, I've either distributed, helped formulate, manufactured, or researched. There's never been a product like this. And over the last year and a half that this has been in the market, I've never seen a product do what this is doing. And especially when you combine it with its siblings, because just doing the process of removing the toxins is only part of the scenario. And that's where mama comes in, to where you take this genius mind and you don't do one thing, you build a trinity. It's kind of important right now. Is that a good enough answer for number one?
Yes.
Yes, thank you. That is the best version of everything that we could pour out of our hearts, poured out of yours. I appreciate that so much. Thank you.
Yes.
So just a couple of quick questions. We typically get the questions of, is this safe for fill in the blank?
Yes. Womb to tomb. Pets,
Womb
people.
to tomb.
Pick one. And it goes to a couple different applications. One, we actually have some amazing pediatricians that we work with. Dr. Tina Bozicnik, who is she's been voted the number one pediatrician in Slovenia and Eastern Europe for, I think, the last 2 years running. And she's done a lot of work with her patients and clientele, which are all kids and infants. And she's written some of the protocols, so we'll have those over to you guys. But what they're finding is not only is it safe, but the outcomes that she's seeing in kids are beyond what she's ever seen before. And I will tell you this from experience of listening to our community, that root babies kids or babies that are receiving Cleanslate and its benefits while in the womb, but then also getting a drop or so, at birth and every day, their development is more advanced than what you can imagine. I mean, having kids that are 6 days old, that are eyes wide open, paying attention, looking around, that are tracking, that are pushing themselves up off the bed at 6 days or earlier, that are physically, functionally, developmentally beyond what most people perceive babies to be, because, well, this just in, if you have a child or if you're a mother and you're not doing this, your kids are absolutely poisoned.
Yeah.
And so it's safe for all ages,
right,
all races, all colors, all types, all animals, people, pets. The only type of person that this isn't really good for, and we don't recommend that they use it, are bad people. We don't want bad people here. We only want good people. So if you're a good person and you want to function better and you want to be amazing, then this is for you. If you're a bad person, don't come here. We don't want it.
So everybody has their why, and Clayton has said his why, and Christina's why. And so everybody knows mine and Shanna's why comes from our children. And you have to understand that this is passed down generationally. So as a mom who definitely passed down her daughter's generational issues, it comes with a lot of guilt. So people want to know why. Shanna and I have our why. When you're the mom and you've got the guilt, man, you will do anything. You will dive into whatever research you have to help your kids. And that is where I come from. And if that's a conversation I'm willing to have with anybody behind the scenes, I'll go into depth in a heartbeat. So,
right.
And, Dr. Christina has gone through the exact same thing. What you do for your kids is, as a mom, it's just really hard to understand. But if you've done it, you get it.
Yeah.
Well, and the issues with transgenerational toxicity and biomagnification are two that are left on the table a lot of times. You're starting to see more of it publicly because of the research that people are starting to do, talking about fish and what's in the environment. But even in the current environment, people are becoming, very, very few people are becoming aware of what the bigger game has been from a health standpoint in looking at body burden. Like the Environmental Working Group studied and has published, I think it was 2012, I think that they published the initial study. But the thought has always been that the womb is a safe place and it's this beautiful place where life is created and such. But what they proved, finding over 200 different heavy metals, environmental pollutants, chemicals, carcinogens, toxins, neurotoxins, radioactive isotopes in the cord blood of babies. It was a whoops moment. It was like, oh, wait a minute, this is not good. And the funny thing is people are talking about stem cell therapy being this great thing, and they talk about how cord blood is the ideal. And you're like, wait a minute, the cord blood's got 200 different toxins, chemicals, and pollutants in it, and the cord blood has stem cells in it. Yes, but those stem cells are completely toxic, and you want to put toxic stem cells into a toxic environment where those stem cells can become anything.
That's scary.
That's
And
a great point.
The issues, and I was having a conversation with an individual that he ran for mayor in a very, very large city in this country. But we're putting a plan together with the current mayor. And they had a walk on Sunday for some organizations. And they want to put together kind of a community immunity program and such that we can bring Cleanslate, Restore, and Zero into communities to address some of the issues. I'm like, one, it's not an immunity issue, but two, when you look at the demographics of the community that they're in, there are three big issues, in some populations: decreased IQ, increased rates of, violent crime, and increased rates of unwed mothership, right? These are big issues in cities right now. If you look at Chicago, Detroit, LA, Atlanta, Louisville, DC, you can go to many areas. These are three of the biggest issues that are facing populations But you know what's interesting? There's one thing that ties them all together. Lead. All of those areas are known to have high levels of lead in kids due to high levels of lead in the environment. Mm-hmm. And a lot of the conversations are lead pipes and lead paint. But the big issue is the lead that's in the soil that's been there for decades. And during the summertime, when things dry out, kids are playing outside, they kick up dust, they inhale it, they're greater exposed to lead. And lead toxicity is clinically proven and published to increase rates of violent crime, to decrease IQ. It's a neurotoxin, to increase rates of unwed mothership. And if you don't believe me, go on pubmed.gov, type in lead and unwed mothership. Type in lead and violent crime. Type in lead and decreased IQ. Let the data show you. This is not us. Every issue in 1974, the Environmental Working, not the Environmental Working Group, that came later. The World Health Organization, before they became evil over the last couple of years. Thank you, Uncle Bill. They published that at the time in 1974, that about 85% of all, not a few, not many, all chronic degenerative diseases were caused by environmental toxins and heavy metals. Yep. But what's been interesting over the last couple of years is there was a 20-year study published in the UK on 350,000 lives, a 20-year population study looking at the big five: cancer, diabetes, heart disease, high cholesterol, hypertension. You know what the cause was after looking at 350,000 lives over 20 years? There was one cause: heavy metal toxicity. So you go, So what people are worried about all has the same etiology. And it's passed down generation to generation to generation, because what's in mom goes into the fetus. So what was in your grandmother, what was in your great grandmother, part of that is in you. Yep. Right. And if we look at glyphosate from 1974 on and everything else that we're exposed to, that is what's in your kids. Is it your fault? No, it's not your fault. It's biology. It's the process. And it's the hard part in women. It's the hard part that I don't really get to have a conversation about because I'm a guy, right? For me to take a stance and go, hey, ladies, this is the problem. It's really difficult for me because I'm not the one who carries. I don't understand what it's like to miscarry.
Right.
I've worked with women. I remember working with one woman before. She's the greatest basketball coach of all time. Died of Alzheimer's symptoms, which was mercury toxicity, because she grew up in Middle Tennessee and was completely mercury toxic. She miscarried 12 times before having her only son.
Yeah.
That's the stuff that makes you go, whoa.
Right.
And that's the stuff we need to address, because glyphosate alone is an extinction event because of what it's doing for reproductive rates in men, for decreasing sperm motility and sperm count and sperm viability, and for women in fertility. And it's really important to understand this when you look at heavy metals. If you look at mercury alone, right? Mercury is the worst neurotoxin known to men. It's the second most deadly chemical known besides the radioactive isotopes. Dioxin is number one. Mercury is number two. So it's the worst neurotoxin known, second most deadly chemical, but it's in all of us in so many different ways. The thought process used to be that 30% of the mercury used to be transferred from mom into baby. Science today is showing it's more like 40 to 60%. So if you want the best detox, if you want to detox your body, ladies, get pregnant. And it's horrible to think that way, but if you want the greatest detox ever, and we have probably the most passionate case study you're ever going to find on our YouTube channel, and it will make you bawl as a human to listen to it. But to listen to a mom that had 10 amalgam fillings put in her mouth at one time, and within a couple weeks, she was deathly ill, but a few months after that, she got pregnant. And the only time she felt good was the 9 months that she had a child in her. And when that child was born, within a couple years, the little dude was riddled with cancer, brain tumors, spine tumors. And for 4 years, she dealt with trying to take care of her son before he died. And she had to crawl across her yard carrying her baby because she couldn't function, to give this little guy to her mother, because as soon as she gave birth, she got sick again because of the mercury that was in her system. And she spent 15 years trying to figure out why this all happened. And it came back to one thing: it's mercury. You have to address this stuff. It's horrific. It'll destroy you. It destroys everything about us. But the hard part with mercury, it doesn't do just one thing. It makes everything worse. And it's in us from the jump. You can't get away from it.
Yeah.
You got to get it out, because here's the worst thing with mercury, and we're probably going to get into this. MTHFR, detox pathways. What's the other one? The methylation conversation, glutathione. You know what all of them have correlated together? Mercury shuts off all of them.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have an MTHFR issue. It's an epigenetic signature that you're mercury toxic.
Right.
It's really simple. It's one cause. It's one thing. You just got to get it out. And
we talk about that a lot.
Your body's not built to get this stuff out.
Yep.
This stuff is so evil that it holds on to negative emotions. It makes you crazy. That's why in Alice in Wonderland, the Mad Hatter was the Mad Hatter, because of the mercury that they used in curing felt hats that drove them nuts. It's the same as dentists today, because they've been putting amalgam fillings in people's mouth. They go nuts and they have the highest rates of suicide.
Yep.
Because they're freaking crazy.
Mm-hmm.
Because they're toxic.
Yep.
Right.
This is our issue. It's really, really simple, but it's insanely complex, because mercury doesn't do just one thing. It disrupts every system of your body.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
But it does it differently in every one of us.
And I think that's what makes Cleanslate in particular, or one of the things that makes it different from others, is because normal zeolite just has that normal cation exchange. But Cleanslate is loaded with sea salts and everything like that for more trace minerals. Then you pair it with Zero In for neurotransmitter dopamine and serotonin production. And then you're giving, because whenever you take out those toxins and everything, the body kind of freaks out because it stores it as a nutrient. So you need to give it the nutrient in its place. And that's where it comes in amazing together.
Well, and like you talked about with the cationic exchange process, and it's called mineral gapping, that heavy metals are hormone mimetic, but they also mimic essential metals, right? So calcium, magnesium, potassium, sodium, and such. So if you're doing something to remove some of those heavy metals from binding sites on cells, and you don't have something to add to them, you'll free up those binding sites, and some of the essential metals will get to their binding sites. But the body is always going to find homeostasis. So as you start to remove some of the bad guys, the body is going to pull more bad guys out of sequestration, so those bad guys can get to those binding sites as well. So you might feel good for a little bit, and then you'll dip. And that's where an understanding of biochemistry is really important. Why do we add the trace minerals? And why do we add trace minerals from sea salt versus humic and fulvic acid? Oh, that's probably... But why do we add ascorbic acid? Because properly structured ascorbic acid on this can improve cellular permeability. Well, what does that mean? It means you can get into parts of the body that you can't get through without it, because the body needs vitamin C. So it's an understanding of biochemistry. A little bit different.
Very good.
So back to neuro for 1 second. So a question we get often is, does this cross the blood-brain barrier?
Can't tell you. You know why? Because we're not a biotech company. We're not a pharmaceutical company. And we haven't done the research. And right now, we won't. But here's what I can tell you from my experience and from the experience of the community. Your mental acuity and a lot of things that are going on in your brain improve significantly. So is it important to look at, oh, well, does it do this? Or is it more important to look at the outcomes? Because the outcomes say that there are things that are going on that are greater than anything we can imagine. But is that an important conversation? Not in our scenario, unless we want to go biotech and pharma. And right now we don't.
Fair enough.
Yep.
Okay. Do we have any live questions, Shanna?
I do have one question real quick. What that I got before that I let them know that I would ask is detox pathways. So some people have had issues with normal zeolites and having issues if they have detox pathways. A lot of functional doctors and naturopaths say clear up the detox pathways first before you detox. Does this affect you if you have clogged detox pathways? And so let's answer that one first before I ask.
Well, let's look at what your detox pathways are first, so we have a really good understanding of what we're talking about, because you hear people talk about phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, phase 4 detoxification, but it's really important just to understand what your real detox pathways are, right? So skin, sweat, mouth, breathing, vomiting, stool, urine, a little bit through hair, very, very, very little. So most of that's going to be processed through liver, through kidneys, out. Mm-hmm. You have some stuff that you can have a visceral response to something and it's going to come out this way. That could be through your lungs. It could be through your stomach, through your gut, to where it's going to come back out. You can hack up stuff. You might have stuff in your throat. Mm-hmm. Your vocal cords might be toxic. And it's really cool that if you're a singer or you're an aspiring singer and you gargle with a little clean slate, you might get an extra octave. Your pitch might change a little bit and you might have a stronger voice because of removing some of the stuff. So when you look at the pathways and you talk about the old approach, the question is, well, how do you clean up the pathways? Because if you listen to the rest of the community, they're like, well, you can't do that. Well, why not? Because even in instances where you can't pee, and I've done some really cool things of having feedback from people that can't urinate because their kidneys don't function anymore. And I think that would be the best case scenario of someone saying, well, my detox pathways don't work. That your kidneys are so toxic, they just shut down.
Right.
And if you are able to remove, and you have to think Clean Slate, the little active guys in Clean Slate as little green garbage trucks that are, and this isn't a process of detoxification. We can eliminate that word, right? Because this isn't a detox process. People hate that word. People fear that word. People don't want to detox because, one, they think of addiction. Two, they have a negative connotation because people have done all the other shit you're talking about and they haven't had a good experience. This is a process of passive elimination. And it does things and works on a level that you've never seen before. So even if you've done all of this other stuff and you've worked with other zeolite products like we're talking about, and you try this, it's different. If your system doesn't work right now, you need to clean it up. And you can do so as slowly as you need to, completely controlled by your body. And that's the important part, is when you take crystals and little structures that resonate with the body and the body understands how to use them, you see changes. This is not a process that we can predict and say, okay, this individual is going to get these outcomes because they have these symptoms and it's this issue. The body's going to control the process. You'll be amazed at what happens, even with a single drop, what starts to happen. because we're not just working on a physical level. We're working on a quantum and energetic level because of how this is created and what it is and what it does. So it's not comparable. And that's not a marketing conversation. Oh, well, we're different this time because we do things different. No, it is different scientifically. It is different from a manufacturing process. It's different energetically. We've proven that. It's different in outcomes scientifically. We've proven that as well. So
awesome. Perfect.
Long answer.
So we had, yes. So one person said, what are the risks with Cleanslate? Should you assess if your child has detox pathways first? And I believe you kind of answered that with that one, to where
we all have,
it would be at your body. Go for it.
We're all toxic. We're all polluted, no matter the age. Do your detox pathways work the way that they're supposed to? No, because this just in, you're completely polluted. The question is, do you want them to? And if you want them to, then you'll do this. But here's the fun part. You can completely control this process. So what we recommend is that when you get started on this, that you don't take that much, you take this much. One drop. Mm-hmm. Sometimes, and if you listen to Paris's interview, which you guys should post it.
We are going to be putting that in. Yeah.
Watch it. If you watch Paris's interview, she wasn't even able to take one drop a day. She had to put one drop in a bottle of water and then sip that throughout the day because of how strong this is. You can completely control the process. No matter the age, no matter the size, you can be as passive or as aggressive as you see fit. It won't hurt you, but you can supercharge the body to do some really, really cool stuff really quickly if you so desire. I have one of our new customers and ambassadors, and she's had a history of trauma, kind of the same way that Paris went through things, but her daughter, when she was 7, drowned and lost all of her faculties. And for about, I think she said 15 years, she was her daughter's caregiver before she died. And that emotional trauma, as well as the physical stress, played a major part in her health, degrading significantly over time, put on a lot of weight and all the other fun stuff that goes along with it. And so when she got her package about a week and a half ago, she's like, I'm going to go big on this. I'm doing 10 drops in the morning, 10 drops at night. I'm going to deal with it. I'm going to see what happens. Well, on day 3, she's like, holy cow, I cannot believe what's coming out of me. I don't feel very good. And for 3 days, she's like, I felt terrible over a weekend. And she was talking to one of her colleagues that was a week ahead of her. And he's like, just keep going. You're going to feel absolutely amazing once you come out of it. And she could have used less, but she's like, no, I'm going to push through this. I want the experience because I want to clear this stuff as quickly as possible. She called me yesterday, giddy. And I was like, oh, you sound a little bit different. She's like, I can't tell you how good I feel. I went through 3 days of somewhat hell as stuff was coming out of me. And I couldn't imagine what was coming out of me on, when I sat down in the toilet, what I was peeing out, what I was pooing out. And she said, I talked to my friend and he said he got up at 3 o'clock in the morning and he was on the toilet for an hour because of stuff that was coming out of him. And his wife was like, what are you doing? He's like, I can't stop. That's the process. Right. Those are the things that we celebrate, right? Because it's amazing, because people think that that's a negative effect. It's like, you have to understand, all of that stuff was in you. It was festering inside of you, and now it's coming out.
Right.
You want that. You crave that. Your body needs it. So it's just a matter of controlling the process, being able to dictate the process, and having that process be as passive as possible or as aggressive as you desire. And kids can do the same thing. Your kids can dictate it. And it's one of the things that we love so much of watching results with kids that are in the spectrum and watching watching the responses from parents, but watching how kids respond and how kids start controlling their own care because it makes them feel good. There's nothing like having a teenage child that's nonverbal start talking in a week. And sometimes when they start speaking in multiple languages, like one of our ambassadors, Yvonne, she's over in the Netherlands. Her husband's American, she's Dutch. And so they speak Dutch in the house, but dad's American, so he speaks English every once in a while. She has autistic, well, I hate the term. She had twins that were diagnosed as autistic, 14 years old, nonverbal. And after a week, her son, I think the older one, started speaking sentences in English and in Dutch.
Wow.
Because it's not that they're developmentally disabled or anything. They're just, there's a glass wall that's up that they can't get past. They see and hear, process everything, but it's banging back and forth.
Right.
If you want to understand the spectrum and you want the best explanation of what the spectrum looks like, on our YouTube channel, on the Root brand YouTube channel, look at the video or the interview we did on the spectrum and autism. I don't care if you've been to Autism One or you've worked with some of the best people, researchers in the autism space. It is the best explanation of the spectrum I've ever seen. I was really fortunate to be on it. But Dr. Stefan Rao and Dr. Dori Narbo, put together something that'll change your perspective on understanding it and understanding how our body functions. So.
Amazing.
Awesome.
So
that was actually one of the questions. Go ahead, Jill. I'm sorry.
Oh, we'll get that link posted too.
Yes. Because that was one of the questions. Have people noticed better speech skills and or lessened autism or sensory processing issues with young children with Cleanslate? So the answer is definitely yes.
Not just young children, but children of all ages. You can be a child of 75 years old. You can be a child of 50 years. You can be a child of 2 years, right? And those sensitivities, as they're removed, as you remove the underlying etiology, right? You see things change. And one of the coolest things is not to see the changes in the young kids, but seeing changes in the old kids. And sometimes watching the removal of trauma that was experienced when you were a young kid that has blocked your development and your function your entire life. But then because of what happens spiritually, because of what happens energetically, as well as the physical components, the release of the emotional component, because heavy metals hold on to negative emotion. They feed on it. When you remove them, you remove all of it. And you can actually, you can see and feel that release of emotion.
Yes.
And what it does in people is like nothing you've ever experienced. And to get those phone calls of people having those phone calls, those text messages, the posts of seeing people have those life-changing results, those amazing outcomes. That's what we live for. There's no amount of money that you can ever earn that is greater than having a message come from someone and say, this is what you did in my life, or this is what you've done for my child.
Yes.
Because at that point, when you get to leave this skin suit and you get to go a little bit past this and you get to have a conversation with anybody, so what'd you do in your life? I'm like, I got that one. And I did that one. And I got a couple of those. You go, all right, we're doing all right.
Yeah.
That's it. Because the greatest investment you'll ever make is in yourself and in people.
Yeah.
Period.
Yeah.
And it'll pay you greater dividends because at some point you'll have someone buy you a beer.
I love it. Okay, we do have somebody asking, is it safe to take with medications?
That's a really, really good question as it pertains to the Trinity. Not just Cleanslate, but Zero In and Restore, because Zero In and Restore actually come with a warning that if you are on medication, granted, there is no, unless you're using carboplatin or cisplatin, which are chemotherapeutics, or if you're on lithium. And if you're on lithium, It's a whole other conversation. You do not want to take Cleanslate at the same time you're taking your lithium, because lithium will be bound in the cage structure. So you want to take them apart. If you're taking medication, you want to take Cleanslate and those meds probably 2 to 3 hours apart, which is pretty easy for most people. There's no direct interaction to say this is going to cause a negative effect with those drugs. A couple things do happen that are really important. One, because of the systemic removal of heavy metals, and those toxins will inhibit proper metabolic function, you will metabolize things more effectively. You'll metabolize food better. You'll metabolize supplements better. You will also metabolize drugs better. So what does that mean? It means that if you are being medicated for something, you're going to need to communicate with your primary care physician or your overseeing healthcare practitioner or professional of any sort, because it's likely that you're going to need to change your dosage over time, because there's a very simple premise that takes place, and that's this: a healthy body doesn't need medication. So as you become healthier, you might not need the drugs anymore.
So I would like to expand on that just a little bit. Make sure that you're your own advocate when you go to the doctor. So in addition, how Clayton's saying to please tell your doctor, be honest with your doctor, ask the question. I feel like I am cleaning up my body. I am taking out the toxins. Is this still the same dose I need? Or is there a chance that it can be lowered or adjusted as I'm doing my part? Can the medication be lower? Be your own advocate. Ask the question. Don't just accept complacency.
And you can do some of this on your own when you're at home. We see a lot of that, of people, cutting the dosage of their meds, not cutting them out completely. Do not do that, but taper down to see how your body responds. And then when you go to see your practitioner, depending upon the types of labs that you're doing, then you can let the data dictate. I got a message actually about an hour ago. I'll play this for you because this kind of corresponds to it. So this is some of the fun stuff. Let me go here. So make sure we can hear this. So this is a minute.
Hey, I'm going to obviously post it all over the groups and on my page because it's amazing information. But I just wanted to let you know that I had a quantum bioresonance healing session this morning. I've been doing lots of different sessions to find what's going to work because the last 3 weeks have been so intense. It's just been like constant nightly panic attacks, 5 to 8 a night. It's been, I'm worn out, as you can imagine.
Of course, I get a phone call right when that happens. Come on, let me play it again. I want more. Okay, let me go back to it.
Hey,
Okay, let me see if I can fast forward. I can't fast forward it, so here we go again.
Because it's amazing information. But I just wanted to let you know that I had a quantum bioresonance healing session this morning. I've been doing lots of different sessions to find what's going to work because the last 3 weeks have been so intense. It's just been like constant nightly panic attacks, 5 to 8 a night. It's been, I'm worn out, as you can imagine. Anyway, as we'd already spoke about, it is more spiritual, past life, trauma from this life as well, all accumulated. So I'm going to be on that, dealing with that. But on a physical cellular level, we checked obviously vitamins, amino acids, minerals, and heavy metals. And of course, there's always room for improvement. But she said that these are the best results she has ever seen. She said, like, humans these days don't have such good results. So, of course, I'm introducing her to the products.
Wow.
Little things.
Wow, that's great.
But depending upon how you do your testing, whether you're using bioenergetics or if you're doing blood work or if you're however you're doing testing, you're going to see changes. And then based on those changes, you're going to make adjustments to your own healthcare. One of the questions we get quite often is, well, do you have clinical studies? We have massive amount of case studies that our team is working on publishing because, well, we've got biotech and pharma backgrounds. We understand how to publish data, how to track case studies. But what's most important is to understand that each of us is a clinical trial of one.
Mm-hmm.
You cannot use data from anyone else to get an idea of how something is going to perform in your body.
Right.
You can't, because each of us is biologically unique. We all suffer from the same condition. We're all human, right? But even in a household, if you have siblings, each one of you are biologically unique because of, one, what you started with, what was in your mother that was put in the womb when you were, when you were conceived, when you were in your gestational process, when you were born, but also even if you put the same amount of chemicals, pollutants, heavy metals, environmental toxins in 3 people that were all the same age, born at the same time, those toxins, metals, and pollutants would be distributed, sequestered, manifest symptomology differently in all 3 individuals. Mm-hmm. So what's important is not to look at what's going to happen in other people, but to really take control of your own well-being. Because here's what's important to understand. No one else cares. No one really cares more than you do about your own health. And really, at the end of the day, as Christina wrote in her new book, Cure the Causes, you are the mayor of your own city. Mm-hmm. You make the call.
Right.
It's your responsibility. No one else is responsible for it. If things go wrong, it's on you. If things go right, you did it. If things aren't what you want, change it. Mm-hmm. No one else is going to help you do that. Right. Well, we might help you, but you still get to choose to do it.
Right.
I love that.
That brings up a good thing about heavy metals being sequestered. So can you talk a little bit about testing? So people are asking about blood tests and hair tests and biofeedback tests. And sometimes I feel like sometimes I'm assuming metals can hide, right? Metals can be hidden.
Well, they're sequestered. They don't stay in your bloodstream. They're let's use the operative word when it comes to heavy metals. Toxic. They don't stay in your bloodstream.
Right.
If you're exposed to arsenic, if you're exposed to lead, mercury, aluminum, cesium, strontium, gadolinium, they don't stay in your bloodstream. They're toxic. They will destroy you. They're deleterious. They are sequestered quickly because your body knows, hey, this stuff's bad. I need to get it away. So it's going to go to fat. Mm-hmm. But the problem is some of these guys like mercury, lead, and aluminum are neurotoxic. So as soon as they're in your system, they're trying to get here. They're going to your brain. So doing a hair analysis, doing blood work, people are like, oh, well, I don't have any heavy metals in me. Yeah. If you test for the wrong thing, it's like, okay, if you go to the grocery store looking for wood and looking for lumber, you're going to be like, oh, wow, you know what? There's a lumber shortage here. There's no lumber available. This is crazy. No wonder lumber is so expensive right now. You can't find it on the shelf. No, because you're looking in the wrong place. It's sequestered.
Perfect.
So you have what we have a major focus on is excretion, because that's what's important. We want to see what's coming out. So urine excretion analysis is crucial. We have a bunch of it. But one of the things that I'm finalizing right now is the collaboration with a lab that does heavy metal analysis, glyphosate, mold, other biotoxins, and you don't have to have a doctor's recommendation to get it, because there are a lot of people that want to know the process. They want to see the data. Right. Practitioners want to see the data. They don't know where to get it, or they want to get the data, but they don't have mechanisms to get the outcomes that they're looking for. Right. That's where we've got the outcomes. We got the mechanisms. We want to have the analytics. So our consumers, our community has the data, but bringing all that together. So yeah, we've got data that shows the outcomes, but we've also are finalizing the relationships that allow us to provide more value to our community.
Awesome.
I got a couple minutes before I got to jump on the next.
Yes. What about breastfeeding? Does the baby get the benefits while breastfeeding?
Absolutely, but it's in twofold. One, because what's in mom goes into breast milk, and what's in breast milk goes into baby. The most important part of having a nursing mom use Cleanslate is not to put the Cleanslate into the baby. It's to clean up mom so breast milk is cleaner. If you want to make sure that your baby is being taken care of, give the baby a drop. And if you think a drop is too much, put a drop on a teaspoon of water and give the baby a drop of that. But I'll tell you, even with one drop, babies do phenomenal. I had one of our customers. He has a 6-month-old, and they've done everything they can to have this amazing youngster that was just epic in his development in the first 6 months. They gave that kid one drop and he broke out in a rash. And dad texted me. He's like, dude, this is freaking amazing. This kid's flushing like I've never imagined. He wasn't uncomfortable, slept like a rock, cleared it in the morning. And he's like, he had what looked like a terrible rash, but showed no signs of discomfort. It just flushed out of him and was gone in the morning. And he was happy as a clam, and he's even more active now. Like,
that could be a warning label.
Right.
It's a warning. This product creates greatness.
Yeah.
Yes, I love that.
Preparation is the key. That's funny.
Somebody was kind enough to put, if you haven't gotten enough of Clayton and you want to jump on with his next Zoom, which is with Dr. Dory, in the comments, somebody posted the link.
Oh,
so
perfect.
We have to let Clayton go because he's got 1 minute to jump on with Dr. Dory, but that link is there. So feel free to jump on if you need another hour of Clayton. There it is.
I don't know if people can do 2 hours. Ask Christina. She's like, nah, one's good enough.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Hey, we'll do this again. And thanks for having me. Hopefully that was informative, and we will get more.
Thank you so much for being here. So, all right, everybody.
Bye, y'all.
Bye.